He's here, Kemp's on Zoom, David's here, Laurel is here, Karen is here, Julia Singer's here, Ryan Scott's here. And so can I have a motion to approve the agenda? I'll move it. I'm on, have a second? Second. Pat? Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Minutes are not here yet, though, not here today. Public portion, public, no. Discussion. The first one is the meeting that we had with the state on October 27th. So we started at, who was there was myself, Mario, Sue L, Kermit from the state, Michelle Dixon from the state, Costa from the state, Andrea Boyle from the state, Tim O'Brien from the state, Chris from Construction Solutions, Amy, Kemp, Mike Zuba, Amy Christmas, Dave, Laurel, and Karen. So first started at 10 o'clock. Mike Zumba went through the enrollments. He was going through it about 15, 20 minutes. Costa gets a call, has to leave.
Now we all know why.
Now we don't know why. So he's gone. Well, we didn't know if it was good, but he's gone. So we went over, we finished up the enrollment. We went on to, so now it's only Kermit and Michelle who can do anything. Well, they really can't, because I'll go in that in a minute. So we went over the allowable area. We went over the enrollment projections, you know, at the and we'll go over that today. Remember, the 1763 was the most, and that was the first year we were going in, and then it drops from that. So we made a decision, and we'll go over that decision when we go over the handouts. We also went over enrollment projection, the impact of that, and we went over some changes with them. We asked them again about progress payments. Michelle said she can't do anything. Years ago, Michelle was in charge of everything, and you went to her and there was no problem. Now she can't do anything until she asks Costa. So after the meeting, she emailed me, and Costa said no money. And then we find out at that meeting after he's gone. So I called Michelle Tuesday. I let her feet get down because of what happened now, because they're leaving. They were in the OPM, and they're moving back to where they always were, a DS, which is much better for everybody. They understand everything. So Michelle emailed me on Tuesday that they are now looking at it. The interim head of DAS is Noel Petra, and he's meeting with the other people. So we should get an answer by hopefully beginning of next week, because we have approximately $2.6 million that we want 85% less 11% because they hope. So we'll wait to hear from them. So any other comments on that? So we really don't know what's going to happen. We have to have another meeting with the state, and we're going to set that up as soon as possible to find out what they're going to do, because, you know, with the budget and with the enrollment, they have to make a decision about certain things for us. So it's all in a little limbo now. So we didn't get a date yet. We could find out, bring up no picture back up to understanding what we're doing. But Kermit is excellent. He knows us. Michelle is excellent. They know she knows us. So At least we have 2 of the 3 characters standing with us. Yeah.
So if they agree, what would be, so you're talking about 2.5 million, 85%?
8.6 million they owe us. So we get 85% less 11% because I hold 11% back. Right? Doesn't we get 74%, 2.6 million. Right. Yeah.
But we can't, I just want to make sure, I'm listening, but we couldn't actually do that, right? Unless we have the referendum for the additional amount.
No, we can do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
This is just the first progress payments.
Yeah, the money you're talking about, is the progress payment, not in changes to the budget.
No.
Right.
So the city has expended 2.6 million. Usually, it's no problem. They send them, once we, send them the information, they send us the money. But since Michelle couldn't make a decision, Costa at that day was not, I don't think, focused on what it was. So we just came out. I can see Michelle going to see him. He's walking through the halls, going to the legislature. What about that? Don't pay him. I can see that. So now we have different roles, different players. And because they wrote to us that it's his guidelines. There's no guidelines for progress payments. Spend the money, get it. Right? Yeah. Happens all the time. We've done that, even with the roof project here, we got paid, all the projects.
Would be about $1 million.
Yeah.
But so I'm talking more about the enrollment piece of it.
Right, we'll go over that today.
Okay.
And we have to go to the back to the state with that. So,
That's one of the pieces that we have to go back to.
we'll show you what we're doing with the state. So update. Kemp, are you gonna start this?
Sure thing. I'll share my screen.
So everybody has the handout.
Everybody see that? Okay. Good evening. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it up there in person. I tried. Spent an awful lot of time in a bunch of traffic and decided to turn around and participate remotely. So I guess we could dive right in. We're going to talk about the design development budget recap. We're going to talk about the impacts of the increased enrollment and the team's anticipated additional costs related to that. And then we have some images to show to talk about some value management items that have been discussed and accepted thus far. Let's see if I can, there we go. Okay. A little bit of a delay. So this is a budget summary, the same format that we illustrated to you back in schematic design, where we contrasted the estimates at the end of DD with the original project budget. So looking at it line by line, the construction cost budget set at the referendum was 133,264,595. After working with 2 estimates and working together to reconcile those 2 estimates, one done by SLAM's estimator, one done by ONG, the team reconciled with a variance of 18,549,000 and change, about 13.9% from budget. The soft costs remain the same. So, and then this is just the sum total line, still illustrating the 18.5 million overage on the budget. We worked for the past week and a half as a team, working with Mario and Ed and Sue and the rest of our side of the team, and Karen and CSG, and have arrived at about $10.5 million worth of value management that's been accepted to date, reducing that budget overage to 7.9, just under $8 million, or 6% of the original budget. So that's 6% of this budget. There are some additional pending budget management items on the list that are a little bit more painful to accept, as well as need a little bit more research on behalf of the design team and or construction management team, worth about $4.7 million. which would bring that budget overage to about 3.2, just over $3.2 million or 2.4%. Any questions on this summary before I just jump to the next slide where we talk a little bit about what contingencies are in these numbers?
Yeah, Fiona has a question.
Well, and he's gonna go through to show us what is those numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
No question, go ahead.
Okay, I'm having a hard time hearing the questions, but just so everybody's clear on what contingencies and escalation values are built into that budget. We have a design and estimating contingency of approximately 4% of the trade costs, which is equivalent to 4.6 million. There is still escalation built into this budget that will carry us out to the bid date of just over $3 million. And then there's a construction contingency that goes into the construction contract with ONG of 3.8 million. And that money is within the construction contract to deal with unforeseen issues as they arise during construction, but for a total of just under $11.5 million of contingencies and escalation within those budget values. So what that means is that the design and estimating contingency goes to zero as we get through construction documents and basically goes into the construction, the bricks and mortar. And similarly, the escalation values, that number tends to reduce as we go toward CDs as well. But the construction contingency will pretty much stay as it is and be carried into the construction contract. Some of the reasons for the budget overages where we are is largely due to escalation of materials to date. Those escalation values or additional costs that the market is seeing for supply chain issues and material cost increases is all built into these budgets at this point. So Dave, I think you have a few things that you wanted to comment on with regard to that.
Sure. So we typically keep track of this in our estimating department as we're receiving pricing. And when we do estimates, we'll usually solicit quotes from trade contractors. Not only do we price it ourselves, we get independent quotes. And through that, we start to see really what's happening with material escalation. So over the course, we've been tracking this heavily since late last year, well, September, October of last year. And what we do is we take each of the portions of the project, look and see where they are as far as their percent of escalation. So for instance, something like steel, it's on average, it's up about 120% from last year. So we take those figures for the individual portions of the work. Steel is 120. If say, aluminum framing is about 70% up. So we take all those, then we weigh them versus how much they are of our project and come up with a balanced average. And for this project, we believe the effect of that escalation on the project is about 10.25% to today. So the estimate that we produced, that we did one, Slam had an independent estimator did one. I forgot what our variance from one another was. I think it was, we've been trending maybe about a percent to 1.25% off from one another. So we're estimating the same thing. That essentially that 10% equates to in the neighborhood of about $13 million of escalation. So that's where things get tough. The state has all these guidelines for what a building should cost, but those figures were set for things long before we got into the situation that we're in. Unfortunately, it's not recovering like we thought it was going to. Still having a lot of material shortage problems that's driving costs up. So You know, I think that the fact that true value management to be 6% over budget while absorbing 10% in escalation is, it's good. It's just the bottom line doesn't look good, but there's a lot that's had to be figured into this project from escalation standpoint that's affecting where we are. You know, yeah. We get to the next estimate, see things pull way back. We don't think so at this point, but you know, we have to be cautious as we project going forward.
Was there a vehicle in place? If costs come way down before bid time or at bid time? I guess contractors probably build them in escalation.
Oh, yeah, and we talked about this a little earlier on. We've actually had to change some of our bidding language. We used to always ask trade contractors to hold their proposal for 90 days. And we were receiving feedback, from people saying, listen, I'm getting quotes and they're telling me that they'll hold my price for 10 days. I can't, if you want 90 days, then you're gonna get some highly inflated number because the trade is taking all of that risk. So we've dialed that back. I forgot what we
So-
done.
Every nuclear fuel price went down back to 45 days.
So to that point, if there somehow, which is unlikely, is some sort of major correction, is there a way for the owner, in this case, the city or the Board of Ed, to realize savings through the de-escalation of prices?
You will memorialize that the day that you accept bids from other trade contractors. The downside of that is, right, is we're projecting that all this escalation has happened. So it's increasing the cost of the project. Now, if something drastically happened when the job bids, say that instead of that net escalation being 15% to bid date, if it was 1%, then we over budgeted for it. So the job would come in $10+ million under budget, which
Right.
hurts, right? Because you had to take scope out of the project. But again, we know that, you know, something that miraculously is likely not going to happen.
Right.
But you would lock in whatever the escalation is at that point, and then the contracts all have clauses saying, you know, that you're not entitled to escalate. When you take the bid, it's a lot.
Because it's a third, 30-month construction, so every contractor is responsible for the labor increases that occur every July 1st, and for any sort of escalation in materials or anything that happens after bid day, it's on them.
Can I ask a question, just so I understand what we're preparing? So the 10% figure you quoted, is that the same as the escalation bid to date, the 3+?
So no, what that is, it's the 10% is in the numbers. It's in the base of our estimate as almost an actualized cost. Whereas we're not going to bid this project for at least 6 months.
Mhm.
So we're projecting, say, all right, say escalation is 5%. Next year, we're saying, all right, then we're going to put 2.5% factor because it's 6 months to construct.
Okay,
Looking forward.
Future escalation.
yeah, okay, thank you.
The current escalation is in the numbers that are in the estimate on page 1, or second page of your packet. And then the escalation on this page, just page 2, is for between now and bid.
The escalation up till now, it's simply, in our mind, it's just the cost of the work.
Mhm.
Right. It's still down.
Okay, Kim.
All right, any other questions on this? All right, we're gonna, we put together a slide just to kind of remind everybody where we are with the overall budget that was approved at the referendum, the 159,575, and the breakdown between local share versus state share. And this is just, it's all factual data that's out there. We just wanted to kind of remind the committee. The original referendum and the explanatory text that was part of the question, as we understand it. The split was basically 74 million and change for the local share and 84.9 and change for the state share. The percentages are broken down there. With the post-referendum legislation, where the state is picking up 85%, and the local share 15%, it changed the equation quite a bit for a reduced local share by about $50 million. I do want to caution that these numbers are prior to financing costs, as well as before evaluation of ineligible costs. So this 85% may not turn out to be, the pure 85%. It will most likely be something less than that, but maybe in the neighborhood of 83.5, 84%. Not sure where it's going to land right now. There will be some ineligible costs that are off-site costs for utility tie-ins at the street, things like that the state doesn't pay for. But just wanted to kind of put this in front of the committee just to remind them that the city has benefited pretty substantially on the local share side with that change in legislation. I'm not sure if there's any discussion with this slide, but we can
This will also factor in the debt service. Debt service was much less than what's in the city predicted. I'm waiting for those figures from mayor's finance person they hired, because they're going to go out to bond in October.
Really fortunate. Very few towns get that kind of.
And
difference.
this happened 2 days before the legislation ended. Mary and I, that's why it worked out perfect.
all right. So moving on, we can come back to that if we need to. We talked a little bit about the enrollment that we spoke to the state about last Wednesday when we met with them. And I think Ed mentioned earlier in this meeting that the 1763 value, which you can see here, hopefully you can see my pointer, was for the year 24-25. And that's the planned move-in year. And when we talked about it with the state and amongst ourselves, the phasing of the project, the plan of the phasing is that the high school will move into the building first while the existing building is demoed and the remaining portion of the existing gym is renovated. Then the middle school students will move in. So by that point in time, it will be down another year or so. And you can see that the enrollment is declining a bit over those next few years. And for that reason, we discussed taking an average of those years from 27-28 through 29-30, which was about 1,630 students, or exactly 1,630 students for an average. And then we said, let's add a little bit of an uncertainty factor and add 20 more students to that to arrive at a 1,650 student design enrollment, revised design enrollment, rather than taking the full 1763 value. And that was kind of sorted out with the state while we were talking with Kermit and Michelle, and it seemed like a reasonable approach. So we took that and we then analyzed what the architectural space program would look like and would need to be to support that student body. Amy Christmas is on the line tonight too, in case there are any questions with regard to that. And then we contrasted the current DD program for the 1,580 students original with the 1,650 students proposed program. And you'll note that the middle school, in fact, went down a little bit because built into this is the change from a 3-wave lunch to a 4-wave lunch, so that that larger dining space was reduced in size a bit. So that's part of why there's a reduction, an overall reduction in the net square feet program for middle school, albeit very small. And then the bulk of the increase was at the high school level. And that's also reflecting the fact that the projections, the 1763 projections had 40 middle school students and 143 high school students. So there is more of a slant toward the high school program with additional students. So looking at that in total for, and this is only looking at the middle school, high school program, it's excluding the central administration program because those are the numbers that the state is looking at for allowable area. So there's about a 5,000, just under 5,000 square foot net square foot change to accommodate the additional students using the same gross up factor that we've been using all along. We get to a gross building area of just under 309,000 square feet. And compared to where we are with the DD package, we have about a 9,460 gross square foot addition to the building is what we're looking at. And then we also did the state area calculation just to see where that lands relative to the allowable area, because the allowable area does go up correspondingly with the additional students. So the new allowable area is 284,972. That's the, we call it net gross square feet. It's the inside face of the exterior wall. And that's the number that the state uses to measure the building. And our best estimated value on that right now, using 5% for exterior walls off of the gross here, is 294. So we're still about 9,000, just over 9,000 square feet above the allowable, but that has been reduced from where we were with this number and the previous allowable for the DD package, where we had about a 12,800 square foot overage from the allowable. So that amount of area over the allowable has improved that situation. Any questions on this?
Can I add that the updated program also includes the recently requested auto and construction tech shops?
Yes, thank you.
That DD program area in the first column does not include those because they were not in the design development documents, as you recall. So in addition to adding square footage for those additional students, we've also added the auto shop and construction tech. So that's where you get the 9,000 over allowable, but it does include all of the programs.
But also it included the library.
This includes both libraries, right? We have not shown a reduction based on.
Correct. You're correct on that. This number represents 2 individual libraries still remaining.
Question over here, yep.
These projections, do they include the following variables? Theoretically, with a change in curriculum, we're going to see a much smaller delta, a much smaller drop off in attrition rate between middle school and high school, correct? A lot more kids are going to stay in the system. So that's one variable. The second variable is the reality of a whole lot of houses being sold in Torrington over the last 9 or 10 months, and a lot of those are going to be family oriented. Have we done any calculation about what that may?
Yeah, you weren't here for the last meeting. It's in your,
All those are taken into account?
correct.
Okay, including the Penrose and.
Yes, you'll see it in the
Okay,
one, yeah.
very good, thank you. That was the question.
Amy, quick question, the 9,190 square footage includes the construction tech and the auto.
Yeah.
How much are just those 2 pieces?
5,000 square feet.
5,000.
Any other questions on the areas? All right. Moving on to taking that 9,461 gross square feet that we expect to be additional for the additional students, multiplying that by our average cost per square foot. Now, this is the full project budget cost, inclusive of construction and soft costs. we anticipate a increase in budget by just under $5 million to accommodate that. Any questions on this? And so Ed, I think you mentioned that you wanted to make a comment that this additional project cost would now need to be discussed at the city level on how to manage the,
To look at.
So if we went the route where the building committee recommended that we not look to make further cuts, if we wanted the additional 4,967,025, that amount would have to be approved by the city council to go out to referendum? Or could the city agree to pay that amount? Because I'm looking at it as we're saving 50 million.
Right.
Right.
It seems kind of silly to cut the building, but I think a referendum would be difficult. So I guess I just need to understand what the process would be.
I think that's why Ed's gonna go to the city and discuss
And
it.
bound council to show them
Yeah.
what one of those slides where we're under the 50 million, we're only gonna need 23 million instead of 74 million. Can we do something with that?
And then have we gotten an answer yet on if they're gonna waive the 1,000,001 in permitting fees to the city?
Yes, we have an agreement. 6 of us were there. Right? Just want to let you know, 6 people were in agreement. They waived almost 90% of it. We have an agreement with doing something. 365,000 is the most that we will be charged.
That would take that number
We
down.
accounted for that.
That's been accounted.
In the value management. It accounted for that savings.
Counts for a reduction of 1.5 million, and we put it in soft cost of 365.
Okay.
so the development of this number, not only the square footage, but the increased budget was something that the state asked us to develop as a next step, leaving our meeting last week. So we feel that, once we, and they also wanted to understand what the city's disposition would be with regard to local share on the added project costs before we go back to them. So once we get that information from the city, we can then schedule a follow-up meeting with the state to further the conversation.
So Ed, is there a date set to meet with the
I'm
bond?
sorry?
Is there a date set to meet with the bonding commission?
No, not yet. I'm gonna send it this week. I want to send them all the documents that was approved, so they can see what.
Mhm.
Want to set the date with the state, so we know how far to get it, so we want to work fast.
Mhm.
So if there are no other questions on the series of slides I've just gone through, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and Julia, and they're going to walk through a few of the larger selected value management items.
Just one
Yeah.
more question. So that 4,967,000.
Yep.
Our assumption would be that the state would pick up 85%, or say 81 if they were, or they would pick up none of that.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Something in between all that.
So
Usually they would pick up, if the legislature, depends upon how it goes. We would have to get it in by December 1st. That this is what the additional amount is. Legislature would then say, okay, we agree, we'll pay you 85% like last time.
Right.
But it's up to the legislature after we go to the state, because December 1st, everything has to be in, because they have to send it to the legislature by December 15th. That's why Michelle Dixon says, hurry up, get everything going. So. we can
But
get
there's
it
a
in.
good chance that.
Yes, we just don't want, if we have to go to referendum, so to speak, we want it only on this amount, not leave everything else alone. That's what happened in another town. They left everything alone, and the additional money they gave at 100%. So there's precedent for certain things.
So, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a pain about
No.
this, but. So if they agree and the state, would we have to put it to referendum or would we not? Because I think if we have to put it to referendum, we delay it. And I'm not
Correct,
positive that we
correct.
would want to delay
Yes.
it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it would depend on how the city was gonna pay for at least their portion.
Right.
correct? They say we're gonna pay for it out of fund balance, then we'll have to. But if they're going to bonding, then they have to.
You know, and if they pay it out of fund balance, they're saving money anyway, because it won't go to the state for 85%, because then it holds up everything. We don't know that for sure yet. So there's new people playing now, so it's tough. Before you knew everything. Now, if you have a little leeway. What's happening? But we'll know that in 2 weeks. We may call a meeting, superintendent, myself, and Mario, just to find out what's going on. Tim O'Brien, we may have to call. Do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think if we stay in their ear and we keep,
Yeah, Yeah, we'll
reminding
call
them how
Tim,
important this is.
and, you know, get a meeting with him.
Any other questions? Okay. So at the beginning of the show, Kemp shared that there was an $18 million overage, and we've worked hard to whittle that down to 7 and change. And so some of those big items we need to share with you so that you're aware of what those choices are that we made. So Kemp, I don't know if you, yeah, thanks. So
My best point for you.
thanks, and I don't have the budget in front of me, but maybe Dave and Laurel can remember how much each of these items were worth. But there were a few approved value management items for the site work. And there's some that are still pending for site work. But the ones that were approved are as follows. In blue here on the screen, you can see that we traced all of the curbing that goes around the parking areas. That curbing was previously cast in place, connected to the pavement. And now we're suggesting a precast curb with the exception of the, oops, I'm sorry, bus loop. And so that's a savings of,
Yeah, I'm just calling up the,
okay, sorry about that.
this is as of Monday, I think.
Mhm.
This is which one? Amy?
140,000.
Curb.
Yes.
Thank you, $140,000 just to change the curbs along the driveway. A lot of driveway. And then one of the other ones that we looked at was that we would not do the softball field, that we would actually just leave that as grass. This is the JV softball field. And I don't, if you think back to your feasibility study, that was not in the documentation at that time. So it was not priced in the conceptual design. So we would be basically returning to that, that process. And so this could be done at a later date. It could be done as an ad alternate in this project if the bids come in favorably. But in this case, it was like a $350,000 savings.
305.
305, thank you. Next slide. There was one other thing on that slide, which was an $80,000 savings I didn't mention, but we did choose to do, instead of built-in stone wall concrete and stone wall benches at this outdoor classroom, if we eliminate those out of the project And we later purchased benches in the FF&E process. There was an $80,000 savings.
Also the cut.
Cut and fill, yeah. So the other thing is we're constantly trying to balance the site and make sure that we're trucking as little of your soil off-site so that we're not paying to then bring more soil back in. So we're trying to continually look at that. And one of the things that we could do is waste some of the excavated soil up on the fields. So the fields will actually be 1.4 inches or 16 inches or so higher than what we had originally designed them at. We're just kind of spoil the wasted soil and spread it out. And that raises the fields a little bit, but it saves a lot of money in trucking costs and getting rid of that.
450,000.
Just a quick question. That's not gonna change anything with like drainage or anything like that on the site.
That's correct, no, it will not. But and we still have all of that designed and built in. It's just a little bit higher and you'll never recognize it. Yeah,
So you're saying you're not gonna do the softball field, you're still doing the grass.
that's correct.
And I just asked if that's been shared with the athletic director. Or will this be new?
This was new. We just decided this, well, or I should say, yeah, so we've just been reviewing this week.
It's the JV.
It's
not
the
varsity.
JV
Which
softball.
is just grass, yes.
He'll have, yeah, I mean,
I'll
it
break
is,
it.
yeah.
Please do it.
Yeah, there's still be a softball field, though. I think that's important. That was just a practice JV.
Right. Correct. Yeah, you'll
All the
still
other
have,
fields will be intact.
you'll still have the varsity baseball, the varsity softball, which JV can play on, of course, and the JV baseball.
And the JV baseball field, what's the size of that compared to the varsity?
The JV one, I think they're both actually the same size,
They're the same.
300 feet to the center line. Also.
The other one is best, the parking on Best Pond.
Right, that's the next slide. Go ahead, Ken. So a big savings is to reduce the amount of work on that parking lot that exists today. And instead of adding islands and changing sort of the configuration and connecting it in this manner to the new roadways. If you click again, Kemp, I think we have a plan of the existing condition. And so what we'll do is we'll just reuse the existing parking lot without any improvements, although we will still participate in with the city to move the skate park. So we'll gain some location for parking, but not improve the parking.
And still close off that little.
That wasn't discussed, but you're right, as a piece of the original design, we were gonna close that off. I think we can still do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's important.
Sure.
Not sure this is appropriate for right now, but if I don't ask it, I'll be sad. The two beautiful trees lining the current road, are those trees going to be victims of any of this, or?
So we did meet with the public safety officer who's in charge of traffic. And there was discussion about what trees to save that are in this island. Is this where you're talking about?
I think they're more
And also along
along the road, more
on the
major
island and
guys.
along the route
Okay.
into the building, there's about 4 trees.
They're pretty mature.
nice.
I
trees.
see 2 that are being taken out. I don't know how many are here, but we also have a provision in our specs for an arborist to come out. And so if we recommend to save a tree as a part of the site work package, an arborist will have to come out and just make sure that it's healthy enough to save. But we'll recommend which ones get protected. And not only to comply with your planning and zoning regulations, but in addition, we're always looking to add green to the site. And we'll try to do our best to save anything that's healthy. Next slide.
Anything else on this? Okay.
265.
250,
265.
265. So Julia, do you want to present this? Wait. Okay, let you join me if you want to. So a very large savings to the project is looking at cladding the gymnasium portion of the building, as well as the auditorium with a different material. The material that we had selected was a panel product, brand name Swiss Pearl. It's a fiber cement product. It was the gray material and meant to really set it apart from the remainder of the building, academic wings and back, which are all the red brick. And so Julia has come up with an option one being a polished concrete block. So it's a much lower cost product. It is a concrete block. And it is a product that is very easy to maintain and does not need to be painted. Because I know that you do have some concrete block on the building now that's painted. This would look entirely different, look more like a stone because of the aggregate that's exposed. And so in doing that, the savings is $1.9 million.
Yeah.
What's the difference in durability of maintenance between the two products?
It's something we're suggesting now, it's more durable. And we are also looking at a very strong from Torrington that is made of recycled material. The other alternative is low carbon environment. So we're looking at the same kind of different low carbon material. And you can see from durability and take a clear coating, so it's graffiti free. It's very easy to clean.
Right, it's actually not as porous as brick because it doesn't have a coating.
Is that in pieces and seams and?
Right, it would be laid like a brick. It's like a
You will see
16 by
in
8.
Next slide.
Next
you will see
slide.
the way how you layering there.
So this is option one, which is that ground face block that we were describing. And then,
I guess, major difference is that if you're doing the ground face block, you're distinguishing volume of the gymnasium and this area from the rest of the building, because this is a very big building and it is important to break it down in a scale. But again, like brick looks as well good and it can make it more coherent. So we will still look at those alternatives, but both of them are saving us a lot of money.
right, so option two is using the same brick that's everywhere else on the building on this portion as well. Next slide. Yeah.
Is that still a 1.9 million or does that get anything more or less savings?
We didn't check that pricing
That's the one to go to brick.
to go to brick.
Brick is
No.
$3 or $4 more per square foot than block. That's the last estimate.
It's the only other one was, there's another line in there that said replace the cladding with insulated metal panel.
That was less of a savings.
That is
And that's not in the acceptable. I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
we did not look at it to further reduce to brick maker.
yeah, because metal panel was $55 per square foot. And this one is about
And brick is 43 or 44. So the savings would be slightly less savings to go to brick. And then to go to the ground face block, it's a little bit.
So the going with the polished concrete block is a savings of 1.1.
1.9.
Mhm.
And is that this one?
It's one of the choices.
Of the-
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've actually selected a.
You didn't select
oh,
exact
okay,
color, but
I-
that's the product.
Those
You
are
might want
different
to be a little bit
sample.
more gray or
Gotcha.
white, but we would like to keep it light because then it could disappear. The volume is very big of the gymnasium, and if you use lighter block, it will look lighter. Okay.
Paul?
Yeah, one more time. I missed the A/B comparison between the original look and you know, cost savings. Do you have that there?
We don't have the cost savings, the exact cost savings for the brick. It hasn't
No,
been.
no,
corrected.
but just a visual. You showed a slide before, right, of what was the
We
existing.
don't have here what was there before. It was very similar look of the
Right.
of the concrete block.
It's that piece there.
Yeah.
Gray one. Are we getting the big T
Visually,
on
with the
the
last. Wait.
It did, it did.
gym? We're not getting the big T on the gym? Oh, come on.
You are, you are.
No, I mean, that means, I'm sorry, yeah, I just doesn't mean much to me.
Oh, okay. I'll take it back.
No, I mean, there's a reason you do this swap off, and I'm trying to see what you lose. Okay, I understand what we gain in money, but I'm trying to see what we
Yeah,
lose.
I mean,
Clearly, you
it's
guys
just a color.
recommended that for a reason initially,
Well, we like the fact that it was a lighter weight material,
yeah.
and also that it was in larger panels. So you would have far less, you wouldn't have any grout lines, you would just have joints between the panels. It's a little bit of a cleaner look, like more modern.
Yeah, it's a very thin material, so I think performance is also a little bit better.
For energy efficiency.
Yes, but on the other hand, it's very hard to bring it to the ground. And because this is a gym area, we were always a little bit concerned about the durability of the from the field side balls and everything. So going with this product, it's such a safe product. And it will still look nice.
Yeah.
So there's a series of images of the renderings that Julia did updated.
So it's just it's a different aesthetic, but it's same quality basically. The next one, so one of the items on the list was the T sign, because this is something that can be purchased later on. And it was also about $18,000 item. So
How much?
18,000,
18.
18,000.
Everybody has, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. So that's it was you know, a metal box, but large.
Would it light up?
No, it wasn't like, it wasn't just metal. I mean, we would light it from the ground, you know, kind of like that.
Yeah, shot.
Mhm.
So it's metal?
Right, it's like a super large applied letter, like you see there, applied letters at the media center sign. But this would just be your logo.
But that's cut out of the current plan?
So that's a value management item that we discussed and accepted for $18,000 because it's something that it can be applied at any time later. We can include it in the documentation as an ad alternate. If you have funding available, it'll be purchased. And if not, it's now a standalone item that you could go to any sign manufacturer and have it done separately outside of the project, probably for somewhat less because the fees associated with doing it through the project might make it a little bit more expensive.
And like Amy said, it's something where if you want it to remain, that's a very easy offer. It's-
Yeah,
It's one bite.
Well, that looks like there's some 3D to it, which
Right.
that does not. So it was the 18
no, it has a thickness, that's right.
would be.
Yeah, it has a,
Bigger than that. Bigger. Way bigger.
right, bigger than me.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And this is really stupid question, but we can't hoist the sculpture up there, right?
No, because that sculpture is actually very, very
Very
heavy
heavy,
steel.
yeah.
This would need to be aluminum and a lightweight.
Yeah,
hollow.
that sculpture's gonna be moved somewhere on.
Or, yeah.
the property.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, I know. we
Well,
won't
as
get rid
long
of
as they're the same, because
Yeah.
you don't want two different.
well, we would just want to match whatever your logo is.
Right, right.
So we're happy to, that sign, this is a placeholder for a large
yeah.
applied sign.
Yeah, no, right.
So
So is this something that we should be deciding, like between the?
well, the question,
No,
I mean,
between the
we
brick and
certainly
the-
have the opportunity
Oh.
to change, you know, if you disagree with one of these value management ideas that we're proposing and saying that's a part of the $10 million savings.
No, I mean, do you need us to decide on if it's still, if we like the white or the brick? Because they're
Not at
different
this
costs.
moment, because we will present again all exteriors materials with the animation, so you will see how it ties in the entire building. This is not like it's a material itself acceptable, but columns and how we are laying it, like one row of the 8 inches and then 2 rows of 4 inches, so that there are variations in it. We will discuss this later.
And then the different material, like on the inside, or the sides of the windows.
Oh, right, so
That's this material here, we had a composite panel that was also costly, so we are proposing a Lombard metal panel, which has a little bit longer durability of the warranty and it's maintenance free. This was also made. This because I don't know what the same was of this significant.
So the metal that looks
going
like.
from,
Like,
it's a BE savings. Yeah.
308,000.
So 308,000 to switch materials to
yes.
a faux wood.
And when you're looking for these things, they have similar standard. We are still looking within some kind of what if we can use it, because again, of sustainability, it will, if it's making clear and it will match this time. Because it just has this one connection.
So again, that's a difference in size of material. So that would have had far less joints. It was a panel material. The longboard is as it sounds.
It's coming in 6 inches and 4 inches, while the panel was 4 by 8. It's
They would have to
different.
like a back. Too.
Well, right, that slides onto clips, like a. Yeah, it, of course, everything has a backing, because you're not gonna see the back side of that
Right,
material on the
If
inside of
there's
the building.
something, because it wouldn't be as thick as the wood, right?
Actually, it's thicker than the wood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's how it's applied is
It
on
has
the
a
clips.
substructure and there is insulation and then backup wall, so both sections.
It seems that is so much thicker, so you have that and I don't know, it's just. had
This
thinking
is,
how they got
Mason
the
this is
meat.
more for aesthetics, right? More than anything else.
That's right, that is at the main entrances.
Right.
Facing the parent drop off, there's a frame around the glass. And also at some of the stairs and other areas, right? there's-
Would that tend to then bend?
Well, it's above grade. No one will really be able to reach that.
Okay, okay.
It's pretty stiff.
And it's meant to be an exterior material. It's meant to be used the way we're gonna use it.
Does
It's
that
very
come in
durable,
different colors?
has a long warranty, no maintenance.
Is it different colors in that?
They have several different shapes and we will present them when we present the exteriors and facade.
This one that we selected is very similar to what you've seen in the renderings and similar to the product we already presented, but yes, it does come in other varieties.
You ready to move on, Amy?
Yes. Thanks.
Sure.
So another way to save money, as you know, is to cut the size of the building. So while we will be adding square footage to the building for auto shop and for the additional needs for the larger enrollment, we're also looking at ways to save money where we can. And one of the ways is to take this piece of building off that exists today at the backside of your gymnasium. We think it will improve the look. It will make the renovated new gym and new locker rooms really much more clean. You won't have this appendage sort of attached to the backside of it. And we were able to take this, which is a 2-story volume, and move the program areas that we've currently got designed in those spaces into this portion of the building. Next slide. It's a bit confusing, but first floor is on the left, and we're moving the outdoor storage, outdoor vehicle storage to this location, and moving the fitness center up. It's finished up on the page. And then the concession stand, which is the other portion on the lower floor of that area, is moving next to it.
And who can use the concession stand is now accessible from indoors and outdoors also.
Is that the only concession? Well, they'll no longer. So there was one outside, and then didn't we have a small one inside?
We
So
did
now-
not have another one, so
So I think that'll be a problem only because you have different groups running concessions on the same night. So like football runs concessions, and volleyball runs concessions.
Not, yes, they do, same seasons, not very often on the same night, though, do they? Yeah,
Yeah. we run a lot
Friday
of
nights?
yeah.
yeah.
well, we'll look at that. I mean, you know, right now, that's not an ideal location for concessions for the inside anyway. When we met about this at another time with the AD and with Mario, we talked about how it's maybe not ideal to have all of the spectators come to that more private area near the fitness room and the trainer's room. So we'll continue to look at that. I think that's, you know, some maneuvering of program area that we can still tackle as we move forward. And then on the second floor, in the same area, there was uniform storage called out, and that's so for off-season uniforms. It's really a storage area that you don't need to access very often. It would just be at the beginning of the season. And so we've managed to fit that in by putting it in 2 separate areas, one on the first floor and one on the second floor.
I think it's important to note that when it was in this location, it was well over the specified program simply because we were filling the available space. So by moving these, they become more in line with the program areas.
Thanks, Kim, that's true. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. Next. So this is just another idea of where the auto shop can go. We talked a few meetings ago about putting it at the lower level, accessing it around back, and coming in this area. Oh, actually, way over here in this area. And so a new idea that Julia came up with, which is, I think, fabulous, is to put it at this end of the existing locker room area. It would be able to have whatever height is required, which we know is a much taller height.
Maybe 18 feet floor to ceiling finish for a car lift and everything. So in this zone, you can build a concrete with one stand so that it is in the middle of the car and really proper automotive shop workshop.
Right, so when we were trying to squeeze it into the lower level, it was a compromised space. We were limiting the area that was gonna be a 2-story volume so that you could have the lift, but the remainder of the space would have still been at that shorter. So I think this gives more opportunity for that. Program.
Right, and what's not shown here right now is that this drive would be reconfigured slightly to bend around that building corner.
Right,
We
and
just haven't gone that far yet.
Removing the appendix that was here, it makes us a little bit more room that we can turn.
the truck radius,
around.
yeah, so trucks that are coming around this driveway and down into the loading dock. We will be updating this, moving forward when we take away the square footage that was here. And we can put the driveway a little closer to the building, the turning radius can be more gentle, and then accommodate the auto shop on that end. Question, go ahead.
Auto shops attract a lot of cars and stay parked there for a day or two or a week or two. Do you have accommodations for that?
So, I mean, there's a parking lot here, but I would suggest that that be in the, yes, exactly, the loading dock area, the service area.
And right alongside this side. we
That
can-
would be a better place for it.
Okay.
I don't know if you got enough.
You could,
room
we can
for
go
it.
to the next slide. So we will see. Yeah, it should be. Because we're planning to have a
The entry from the back.
overhead door here and the entrance from the back side so that it's not so visible when you're approaching gymnasium. And we think that we have enough room to accommodate your cars.
I think it's a good location for this piece of the program because of all of the things that Amy and Julia have mentioned. I do understand your point about there may be a stray car or two. My understanding is this is a exposure program. It's not a program where you're going to have, you know, a fleet of cars coming in and out. There will be one lift and one primary bay door. So if you had a car or two, we could make accommodations back here for those to be parked.
It is very close to the gymnasium entrance. So to John's point, you don't want stuff piling up out there, you know?
And it does pile up outside.
Oh, absolutely it does. Yeah, wood shops, auto shops, there's always junk laying around.
But we also wouldn't like to have this near the preschool area.
No, I understand that. Yeah, no, I get that.
So, and that's why we're proposing where you have like also outdoor vehicle storage. That's the same size, that's the service size, it will not be visible from the coverage. You can see, can you show the elevation? Can you go please to the next slide? So this is the look without it and with the structure. You could,
Better do that again, because it's hard to see.
So this is
There it is.
without it?
And then, yeah, so it brings the building out further, but to Julia's point, the entrance would be around the other side.
What are the spaces next to it?
That's your athletic equipment storage and outdoor athletic equipment storage.
What if you flop those?
Well, so the auto shop can't go in this look in any of the existing space, Mario, because it's only a 12-foot
Gotcha.
floor.
And
And there's a lot of columns.
Yeah,
Roland made a good point too, is that with consideration that you won't get that program until after the building, you won't get that program for another year. Because we have to take the building down to make way for it.
Right, that would be part of the phase 2 construction.
And they would have to go outside to get there.
No, they could enter through this, a person could enter through the hallway, but a car would have to go around. No, it doesn't change the bus.
Yeah, looking back, it doesn't change the bus loop, but it changes the relationship of this drive that goes around the back and how it intersects with the bus loop. So it would come around a little bit further and intersect more like that. We just haven't drawn it yet. But we have studied it and it will work.
We could measure that in the next drawing.
What was the
Can you-
question, Amy?
The distance to the public entrance.
Because like this.
So here's the entrance. sir. And then the entrance to this would be around, you know,
So this dimension here is about 50 something linear feet, so you have about 100
between them,
feet between.
And what's the square footage of that section?
3,000.
3,000?
See right where the arrow is.
On the back.
And then where is the gym entrance for the public?
Right here.
They're
Same as the
not on the
public.
same side of the building.
Right.
The house is behind the corner and it's
The-
cut between the
Pulling in.
retaining wall.
Pulling in and parking, the public won't even, they will not see that entry side of the auto shop.
Right.
It'd be in this zone and then face the public side of the.
But there'll be a lot of foot traffic, right, to get to the soccer field and.
Absolutely, and that is right here, this sidewalk. Currently, it's a ramp showing this right location there.
So that would extend out a little bit. And this sidewalk would extend along this edge. So we would have some sort of a crosswalk right there to tie in. It's just not developed yet.
And this is elevated, so this ramp is bringing the people on a higher level of the fields are. So the automotive entrance will feel like in the lower zone.
Right.
Right, when you're at the fields, you're almost at like second floor height looking at the building.
Yeah, very similar now to where you're standing at the fence
Yeah,
up
you
there.
will not
Yeah.
see the car from the field because they're moving lower.
No,
I wouldn't
Gotta go
want them
somewhere.
moving stuff out all around. anyway.
No.
You have to put it into the garage.
Right.
yeah.
How much of that 3,000 square feet is actual bay space, so to speak, like a garage?
Well, we're just being asked for one lift.
Correct, right, but I mean, is this like 2 deep, 2 cars deep? I mean, how, 3,000 square feet is big.
That's right.
You could fit in 1,200 square feet, you could fit 2 lifts in. So that's what I was wondering, but
That's correct. You could fit another car, but not another, I guess theoretically you could add a lift. if the
no, not a
person-
lift, but just like if you wanted to leave another car inside. Like
So,
instead of
Yeah, I think-
leaving-
a parking space is what, 10 by 18?
Yeah.
So 180 square feet.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think, we're showing one bay door right now. This could be 2 bay doors and you could have one bay without a lift and one with a lift.
Yep,
So you can just leave the cars inside. That's
absolutely. Yeah.
you
And
know.
then this also builds in a lot of storage and area for tools and a recitation. So it's a class.
It's a good solution.
There's no reason why, if for some reason there were 3 cars and only 2 fit in there, that one couldn't be parked somewhat temporarily.
Right along this drive.
Yeah, but if for some reason it was really like a messed up car and somebody said, I don't want to see that, couldn't it go in the parking lot temporarily?
Well, it could go in the parking lot, but they'd see it, but
Yeah, we
it
don't want
No, I mean, the
it
one
could go
down,
also in the loading dock
it's
area.
like where the skate park is, tucked
Oh,
in the
way down,
corner
sure.
there,
I mean,
and
it
then
could-
moved up when they needed it, or.
Someone could
It's a
park
long way
there.
to drag a car though. but what's
If
that?
A messed up
it's
car.
not working.
Assuming it's, yeah, it's drivable.
Okay,
So there would be, just thinking, there would be enough room if a car, someone towed a car there would be enough room to be able to turn, put the car in and all that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, this lane that comes around, remember, this accommodates a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
And two-way traffic.
A lot of room there. It's a lot of space.
Amazing. The spaces attractive for can get in and out of.
I know, those truck drivers are magicians.
Phenomenal, yeah.
that it? Yeah.
I think that's it. Yep.
Okay.
I think this was the last slide. Yep.
So just going over the next steps, we're gonna follow up with another meeting with the state. Go over that enrollment with them. Update with them the allowable square footage and update them on the budget. So that's what we've been doing with the state. The next thing is ONG construction career paths. It's the second page. Again, I told you last time, David and I and Marshall and Ruth.
Yeah.
Beth,
Already,
Dupont.
HR.
Sorry, met. And this is their action plan proposal. We're gonna meet next week to fill in the dates and to go over all these items with the high school. So
The overarching theme is just how many interfaces can we get with students throughout the course of the project, starting hopefully sooner than later. That'll paint the rest of the picture from what students are getting relative to entering a skilled trade through the union. And so being that we have the headquarters right in town, will have more accessibility to not just the construction aspect, but all the other aspects of ONG, whether it's accounting, finance, or all those things. So that's the intention.
And this would be for seniors only?
No, well, this is. You don't know, I think that's really, those are really the details. There were some initiatives there. So.
Because the business pathway is interesting too.
Yeah.
You know, so-
Yeah, I would say, I don't necessarily think we would be exclusive to one grade level or another, you know, we do some of these programs in other schools. Freshmen are doing it just as much.
Just to be on the field. Be out in the field. You have to be-
Yeah, and I don't know the rules on that. I know Beth does, as far as, I forgot what they call that, the work-based learning. I forgot what it's called, but I know there are some rules, and these are more, some of these things are more initiatives like bringing people in to talk to students and to meet with students.
To help drive them on the path.
Yeah,
So they
exactly,
character development and interested
Yeah.
in it, that's what we do.
right. I mean, I'd love to put them all to work. but-
Yeah. But that's always been my, as a retired teacher, that's always been the boys that, and some of those that I work with. 14, 15. Or who quit it, maybe we weren't academic, to give them something. So,
It is a 30-month project, so those freshmen might then stop working by teaching. Towards the end of the project, and then the outlet, so you guys take that.
well, we'll try to commit ONG for 10 years.
10 years.
I'm pretty sure,
I was gonna say.
I'm pretty sure you can probably negotiate any sort of term on that you want. Ed.
I think you're saying.
I think it would be forever.
Can I just ask a question? I think this is great. That wasn't a question, but I'm always amazed at, like, you talk about construction, but how many careers there are in construction within that. And I don't know if it's something that, like, the high school has an intro to engineering and there's every kind of engineering, but within, is that something that perhaps you could address in something, or I don't know if the school will, but you know, within construction, there's right into the trade, there's 2-year programs, there's 4-year programs that all lead to do something in this pathway. And is there room in here for some kind of?
There is, and that's more of it, and that's the bottom portion. That's where on a lot of our projects, that's the experience that the client gets with the ONG Build program. That's where we typically, when construction is underway, we have this a class, and we ask students to join. It's not a drop-in, it's a class that's arranged through the guidance department where they're responsible and accountable to be there and to learn. And we, throughout the year, we bring in different speakers, and they're dovetailed to the work that's actually happening on the project. And we'll bring an array of people, 2 or 3 speakers. We don't have that much time. Usually the sessions are maybe an hour and a half or so, depending on what we can do. And we bring people that show the whole string. One company may be a mason, and they may actually bring in a mason foreman, but they may bring in their estimator, and they may bring in the owner of the company. They come in and say, hey, I went to school for this, and I went and got my, I went to business, and so it's, you hear a lot of really interesting stories of how people got from A to queue.
Great.
Job shadowing, internships, and kind of along those lines, you know, there's,
So,
when we had those programs in the past, kids come back and tell us a story, that one little experience got them onto the career. path.
and with these other programs too, like you said, it's not just construction, it's marketing, it's working with drones, it's all those things that we do under that umbrella of, and, you know, is adjacent to construction, but it's not career in construction necessarily.
The next two pages in the thing are just showing you analysis of payments to date. that Vendors have been paid. 1.7 million. So. sweet. And then it goes to the next two pages of two bills included. First bill is a SLAM. This is their first bill under design development for $79,150. Have a motion to accept that. A second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The next one is O&G's payment, $17,246.15. So second, John. Yes, we said, right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Comments for the good of order. Brian, I'm good. Amy?
Good.
Julia? Alan?
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, great information. A lot of work, everybody that's all involved. everybody down in the weeds with this. Thank you.
Karen? Case?
Okay.
Paul, anything?
Just a question, I missed last meeting. These are the value engineering decisions that we discussed tonight, are these going forward now?
Yes.
Or- Okay. Here.
Laurel?
I'm good.
David?
Thanks for dinner.
No, I know, you guys, Ed and Sue and the SLAM team, and Karen have been working really, really hard. And the shakeup at the state doesn't help, but. I did.
You did?
Yeah, I don't think you were.
Well,
You look very relaxed to see you.
Yeah. Just want to know, I just wanted to have it on. If you weren't happy with this, I just want to know.
No, you know.
You didn't get a cheesecake yet, did you?
No.
Okay, so you're safe.
So far,
You're
so
safe.
good. That's right. I'm just saying, awesome.
When I find Costa's address, I may send it.
That's the equivalent of the worst she said.
That's the Jewish mafia, send them a cheesecake.
Right. It's kind
Karen, anything?
Thank you for bringing the materials, so it makes more sense. to
Good.
see it in front of you. I appreciate that.
John?
Again, good thinking on the location of the auto shop.
Yeah. That was that team. Julie, not us.
Great work, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. It's been quite a learning experience. Fascinating.
Good. More to come.
Thank you.
Also, thank you for being so flexible with all of our changes. And this is so important to our community. We just want to make sure it's exactly what we want. So thank you for not getting frustrated with us.
Agreed. We're gonna be there a long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Donna,
Thank you. Good.
next meeting, we should have it, not the day before Thanksgiving.
No.
The week before. What day is it?
18.
18?
So do you want to wait until we have the schedule on the state meeting, so we have
Okay.
something to report.
Okay, so why don't we'll hold off until we get to the state and then we may want a meeting, not on a Thursday. It's gonna be tough the week of Thanksgiving on a Monday, so, yeah. Yeah, okay, we'll wait till once we find out from the state, okay, we'll send it all that. Could I have a motion to adjourn? John? Second, Norman. All in favor? 6:33, thank you.
Wow. What was the big announcement?
Thanks, Cam. Have a good night.
Hi, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.